We're modern people. We cannot go up to at least Chathurtanga. Ekanga, Dwiyanga, Triyanga, Chathurtanga, Panchanga, Shashtanga, Saptanga, Ashtanga. 8 limbs. And I have not met anyone who could go all the 8 limbs. It is impossible. It is just impossible. Why? Because now I'll get straight to this thing called Kashtanga. You will understand why I say Kashtanga a bit later. When I first went to Mysore, I heard people talking about Ashtanga. And I took it easy. I said, yeah, Ashtanga is what it is everywhere. And they said, no, Ashtanga, a style of yoga. I'm like, what? Style of yoga? I mean, isn't everything in the world, whatever you call by the branch of yoga as different names, it all comes under this umbrella of Ashtanga. Isn't that what it is? They said, no, Ashtanga is separate. No. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't sound right. And that's when I started, digging deep into it. It's just another style of, something they have put up sequences and, they call it Ashtanga. And that's why I cannot call it Ashtanga because it's too much of an insult to yoga. I'll explain why. Hold on. And that's why I call it Kashtanga. And that's kind of a fun word also. Now, I'll tell you why I cannot call that a separate style of yoga. Imagine you went to this restaurant that you heard of, very famous, and people said you should go and try their signature dish. And so you went. And you asked the waiter, hey, bring me your signature dish. And he goes inside, takes a few minutes, puts everything together, and he brings, sir, here, our signature dish. And you say, well, looks interesting. What's the name of this? And he says, sir, it is called food. You get my point? If there is a dish, a special dish, however special it is, and if they name it as food, our special, the signature dish of our restaurant that we are famous for is called food. Imagine that thing. Think about it for a second. That's exactly what this Ashtanga is about. I mean, I like the kind of sequence. It's kind of fascinating and it's interesting if you did it well. And there's another theory that I'm going to talk about later, where female Ashtanga and male Ashtanga is different according to the style I'm talking about. Not the yoga. Now, when I ask that question, like, have you been taught about the female version and the male version? They're like, what? Male and female version? What is that? It's just one. No, it's not one. I'll get to that point. That's going to be another video. Now, every style of yoga that exists in the world, if it is good, it has to be Ashtanga. It cannot be otherwise. If you specifically say I'm referring to the asana part of it, one of the limbs of yoga, and that's the style, I accept, I agree. And that's how it is. I also have a style of yoga called Shunya. I am not going to say this is just asana, and that's not what I have designed. It's much more than that. But again, we'll talk about that some other time. Now, you cannot call a style Ashtanga because that's a grave insult to yoga world, to Patanjali. 8 limbs of yoga. Any yoga that you learn has to cover all this. We're modern people. We cannot go up to at least Chathurtanga. Ekanga, Dwiyanga, Triyanga, Chathurtanga, Panchanga, Shashtanga, Saptanga, Ashtanga. 8 limbs. And I have not met anyone who could go all the 8 limbs. It is impossible. It is just impossible. Why? Because the recipe is given by a sage, by a monk, by a godman almost. And if you actually follow all these Ashta-anga of the yoga, it's impossible you won't turn out to be a Patanjali. Otherwise, Patanjali is a fool, isn't it? He just gave you a failed recipe then. It's not so. In our capacity, as far as I see modern people, 99% of them can go at the most Panchanga, which is 5 angas, because brahmacharya is one thing we cannot do. And dhyana, how many people have you seen sit in that type of dhyana, attain samadhi? Anyway, The purpose of this is not to get into these topics that you've been already, given sermons about. The purpose is, what is the path we are on? What is yoga offering, and what is it delivering? We have to look into that. Just coming up with a design, with a style of yoga like I have and like many have, and calling it Ashtanga is a no-no, is a big no. I'm happy that yoga ministry has taken place in our country, and government is doing quite a bit of work, and one day they will abandon this. Nobody should take the core word. It is the fundamental word of yoga. You cannot take, you cannot have rights to Patanjali. That's not a given. That's not happening. You can give it other names. You can call it whatever else you want. You can claim that it gives you the best of the benefits in the entire world. Whatever you want to say, it's okay. But taking the fundamental word is not okay. It's like you are going to copyright the word called word. Like when just think about that for a minute. You went to get the patent on a word called word, so that nobody can use without your permission or without giving you a royalty. Isn't that insane? That's exactly what this Kashtanga is all about. Now, if you're interested in a female and the male version I told you, check out the other video.